Welcome everybody to our mini marketing course. We're so excited today to welcome Dr. Sandeep Krishnamurthy. I'm going to give you a brief overview about Sandeep. He's the Dean at the AACSB accredited School of Business at the University of Washington in Bothell. He received his PhD from the University of Arizona in marketing with a minor in economics in 1996. He's passionate about working with business leaders on positioning their companies for the future. And in his spare time, he bikes, he plays chess, and he watches Scandinavian Netflix shows, which I'm definitely going to ask him about that later. He and his wife, Srivani Jade, they live in Kirkland, Washington. And on a personal note, I was just chatting with Sandeep about the honor that I have to serve on his advisory council. And I can't believe I've been on his advisory council for almost 10 years now. So it's truly been my honor to be part of our local business community supporting such an amazing institution and Sandeep. So I firsthand have viewed his leadership, his entrepreneurial spirit, his partnership, and I've hired several graduates from University of Washington at Bothell, which I can't speak highly enough about, and taught a couple classes there. So if you're out there looking to hire, take a look at the students coming out of the University of Washington Bothell. It's really an amazing program. So today we are talking about the post-experience economy. And as I mentioned, this is a mini marketing course for all of us out there. We are in it. We are still in this post-experience economy, and we're seeing changes around us every day in every way that we buy, that we experience brands, that we just get through life. And Sandeep has a really, I think, interesting, thought-provoking, innovative way that he's talking about this trend. And so the goal is really for you to walk away inspired, maybe some tips on how you can even be a better marketer, and share. So this is going to be really interactive. I'm going to turn it over to him. Please type in any questions. He's going to be managing the Q&A. So type whatever questions you have as he's talking. And I hope we all have a great time, learn some things, have some fun. And I'm going to wrap it up at the end in an hour. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Sandeep.
Thank you, Lisa. Welcome, everyone. Today is really quite an exciting opportunity to interact with all of you. And it's always a pleasure to partner with Lisa, who I regard as really an amazing person. And she's been a great collaborator over the years. And today we have something different for you. What we wanted to do was talk about some important trends that are happening in our world and something that is going to affect all of us. And so today we are here to talk about the post-experience economy. And I wanted to start off with a simple story. And the idea is that, commencement, where we celebrate our students, is one of the highlights of our year, where thousands of family members come to greet and support the students. And all over the world, universities now have virtual commencements. And I cannot tell you how stark the difference is. So I'll show you with some pictures. We are used to commencement ceremonies looking like this. Some of you may have attended such ceremonies. They're usually tens of thousands of people. I've been in ceremonies where there are 50,000 people in one stadium, and the graduates are seated and they come one by one, receive their degrees, and we celebrate them, and off they go. This year, this is the official picture of the University of Washington's commencement ceremony. I'll just let it sink in for a moment. So that's the president of the university, Anna Marie Kause, and she's looking at some screens as she delivers her presidential address. What a change. Everything just absolutely changed in 2020. And one of the things that changed for us in universities is how we do commencements. And across the world, they have used some other new technologies, in their commencement ceremony. So I wanted to show you this. Here's a professor from Asia, and he's with two of his freshly minted graduates. He's so happy. He's greeting them, except what you're seeing there are robots. basically that get wheeled in, and there is a screen, and on each of the screens, you see the photos and live videos of the graduates. So basically, they tried to make it as close to a physical graduation ceremony, but rather than having human beings, you had robots with screens, and on the screens you had live video of the graduates. And yes, there was a ceremony where they called names, and the robots came in one by one, and they stood and took pictures with the faculty members. But really, you had each of the graduates sitting in their homes in far off places. And so fundamentally, the concept of experience is getting redefined over and over again. And this has happened at an accelerated pace in the last year. And it happened at a pace that was really bewildering. And it was so far reaching that one of the points I want to make is that this is not just one or two instances that we are seeing. This is now societal. This is happening not just in America, it's happening the world over. This is central to our life in the future. And of course, McDonald's is going to do it, right? So, we are used to doing drive-throughs in McDonald's, but nobody goes inside a McDonald's anymore. You have an app, you select what you want, and you place your order, and you choose what you basically pick up your order curbside, and you're good to go. And what fast food places like McDonald's are doing is they're minimizing the number of touches. They're creating what we call the touchless economy, where nobody gets to touch your order more than once. And it's just sitting there on the shelf for you to pick up. Or people are not touching you and greeting you in a certain way. So it is a touch-free restaurant that is getting created using technology. And all kinds of new workflows happening in the mall. So this is a typical thing that is happening. Call ahead of time, use an app, and just go and park in a parking lot, pop your trunk open, and one of the store employees comes out and loads up your order. You don't need to meet people. You don't need to stand in line. The product just comes into your car, and then you drive home. These are the sorts of things that are happening. They're happening, at an accelerated pace, and all of us have experienced them. And of course, we're all working from home now. Those of you that have young kids know exactly what I'm talking about. Work has come home, universities have come home, and kindergarten has come home, and we're all working together, working from home, and somehow trying to make the best of this kind of completely unexpected situation. So in marketing, we love to talk about customers. We love to talk about consumers. So what is a traditional consumer behavior model? We typically talk about 5 stages. The first stage is awareness. People need to become aware of your brand. They usually become aware of your brand through an advertisement, through a billboard, social media, any number of ways. And then we talk about consideration, where people actually evaluate your product and try to make sense of whether they want this or not. And then typically there's some sort of an experience where they go to a store, they interact with the employees there, and then they buy the product, and then there's post-purchase. So this is typically the traditional consumer behavior model that we are used to. What I'm basically saying is this, that the experience portion of it is going away in a big way. And I want you to just pause and think about that in terms of what that really means, right? And of course, some of you are going to immediately say that, hey, this has been going on for a long time. Yes, it has. All of us know ATMs, right? We withdraw cash from the ATM rather than walking inside the bank and speaking to a teller. That has been going on for a long time. You can go to a post office and work through a vending machine and ship whatever you want, wherever you want. You have drive-throughs, all sorts of other ways by which we have found ways to eliminate human contact that has been part of our society. But what is new is the scale at which it's happening and the scale with which people are actually liking this. And so I think there is a fundamental kind of disruption in the fabric of our society because of this acceleration of the removal of experience. So what does it look like? All of us have done this, right? We order our favorite drink on an app, and then we go to a store and we pick it up. Rather than just driving to the store, interacting with the employee, explaining to them what the product is, we are now interested in value that is separate from experience. So basically, we go in there, we order our product, we know what we want to be in control, and the drink is already ready. When you arrive there, you pick it up and you leave. Right? This is what our world has become. And there are many online stores, of course. All of us have shopped at Amazon, maybe Walmart.com. Wayfair is still around. A lot of fans of Etsy around. But basically, I think we have a large economy now that converts clicks to cardboard boxes. That's what I call it. So basically, we have our computers, our devices, apps, phones, and then we place an order and the product just arrives on our doorstep. And the same thing is happening with gyms. I've been a regular gym goer over the last decade, 2 decades. But today, if you're ready to exercise, people want to Peloton. Peloton sales are up ridiculously, and what is happening is that people are experiencing things, but virtually, right? And so there are some massive changes happening, and these changes are happening not just for a segment of society that really wants it. So typically, for example, we talk about the product life cycle, where an innovative group of customers want to try out something novel. This is not what's happening. This is really already mainstreamed right now. So what is another way of thinking about this is the mainstreaming of the post-experience economy. That really is the big trend. That this is now part of how we live. This is now part of how we shop, how we learn, how we do everything, in fact. So I found a couple of quotes from healthcare executives in terms of how they're experiencing the post-experience disruption. So here's a quote. We've seen a 2,000% increase in virtual care, 2,000% increase. And we actually don't see it going all the way back to where it was before, because now providers and consumers trust it. People trust it. They trust that they're going to get great medical care from a doctor, nurse, physician's assistant, healthcare worker of any sort, from a phone, from a device. That's happening in a big way. The next one is a quote from a doctor. We experienced firsthand that this was really not about a pivot, right? This was never about a pivot. Rather, our patients, physicians, and nurses have grown accustomed to digital health over years of incremental and foundational work, and it all came rushing together to make this the new normal. I like the way this person said it, that it's all a whole bunch of factors are coming together, a whole bunch of people are coming together and saying, we can figure it out and we can give people exactly what they want. And I really like the first person's view that, people now trust this. They trust that they're going to get good service. They trust that they're going to be in control. They trust that they are going to really get the product that they care about. These are the sorts of things that we are seeing in the healthcare world. And now there's a new term, permanent remote work. Permanent remote work. This was coined by Salesforce, so give them credit right away. Basically, this idea is people are, so keen on making sure that their employees are satisfied. They're now saying that we're going to have a policy for permanent remote work. It's not just until the end of 2021, 2022. Let's stop all that. Let's just think about permanent remote work. Okay. So for some of us who have talked about remote work over the years, this is a startling, sort of a realization that at one point, organizations really fought this idea of remote work. Some of you may remember that when the Yahoo got a new CEO a few years ago, Marissa Mayer, she came in, and the first thing she said is, "Where is everybody?" And she said, "Everybody's got to come back and work, from one particular location. No more. We are now gone completely in the opposite direction, and it's not just work from home on a temporary basis, but work from home on a permanent basis." So now we have this new concept called Zoom towns, where you don't want to live in downtown San Francisco, no problem. You can be 50 miles away, 100 miles away. You can't be too much farther than that, because you may have to come into your corporate headquarters once a month or twice a month. But you can get away from oppressive San Francisco downtown rents. And what's happening? Downtown San Francisco, the rents are down 30%, 40%. So massive, massive change. Another kind of data point, they did a survey and asked them, how important was it as a staff person to have their organization have a permanent remote work policy? And the number of people that said that they wanted this was 98%. Everyone pretty much that they surveyed said, "We want a permanent remote work policy. How can we do this? I want to move to a different location. I want to, find a way to get this, going in a massive way in my life. I want to restructure my life." These kinds of realizations are upon us. And I think, the point that I also want to make is, I'm not saying that experiences are going to go away entirely. Sure, I mean, we all love to meet people, and we'll talk about that. We love to be in other people's presence. But what I'm basically saying is that the traditional experience-based economy will continue, but the post-experience economy is going to grow faster and faster and faster. And that is where we're going to see more of the future in terms of where the trends are going to take us. That's really the argument. So for example, the post-experience restaurant, right? And I love going to restaurants. I love having a good meal with friends, business associates, family members. And what do we usually like? We go in there, we love the service, we love the ambiance. I love the buzz of hearing people's speaking to each other, and we get good food. We're paid attention to by the wait staff, and it's wonderful. But now we have to think about the post-experience restaurant. And this is the reality that restaurant industry is already going through, in not just in our state, in Washington, but all over the country. In fact, all over the world, right? So the restaurant now is not about, seating. It's no longer about seating. It's no longer about ambiance. Even if you have seating, there is a lot of pressure to reduce the number of square footage allocated for seating. Instead, what are restaurants doing? They're pivoting to all kinds of new strategies. The first one is takeaway. You can basically come to the restaurant, and just as you would do in McDonald's, you would pick up your meal and leave. And some people have added an ordering-based workflow where you can order and pick up your meal and go. That's just, takeaway. You can do curbside pickup, which, all of you know what that is, delivery. Some of you have, paid attention to what's happening with DoorDash. DoorDash is out of control. I mean, the increase in, acceptance of DoorDash and Uber Eats as the two, premium delivery service is just, quite high. And in fact, they are not able to handle the demand from the customers who want to just stay home, order, using DoorDash, Uber Eats, and then watch Netflix. And this is what's happening. And then catering, of course, people still are thinking about ways of, creating catering-based solutions. And then finally, there's a new concept called pickup pop-ups, where you don't have to come to the restaurant. The restaurant sort of comes closer to you. Imagine if there's a restaurant that you really like, and you don't have the time to go to the restaurant. Maybe the restaurant comes somewhere closer to your neighborhood, and says, hey, we're here. It sounds a lot like a food truck, doesn't it? But the high-end restaurants are calling it pickup pop-ups. And they're trying to find ways by which they can still create some interaction with their brand. And I think this is the new concept of the restaurant. And of course, I could have added things like, drive-through window, but those have been the traditional things. These are the ones that we're seeing that are really added in a big way, in recent times. And some numbers, that tell the story. 70% of US shoppers shopped at Amazon in Q3 of 2020. 28% of US adults now subscribe to Netflix. And the gym industry, the hospitality industry in general, very broadly, if you think of the hospitality industry, that includes cruises, for example, hotels. They're all, trying to kind of imagine how their world might look like, in the coming years, not just this year, but also coming years. Definitely, the technology usage has gone up. And one of the big beneficiaries of this has been Amazon. And this is their revenue chart. But the number that I'd like you to take away is in 2020, their revenue averaged $1 billion a day. Just think about that. Okay. Amazon's revenue in 2020 averaged $1 billion a day. So quite a staggering, growth even for them. I think you would see a massive, discontinuous leap is how we would describe it. So I'm just going to pause now and do a little activity to learn about where you all are coming from. So give me 1 second here. I'll stop sharing and then move to a different screen. Please give me 1 second.
And Sandeep, while you're doing so, just to cut in on the action here, this is Carrie. We have quite a few questions and comments in the chat. So could we share some of those with you while you're pulling up the poll?
Yeah, I think I'll just get to that in 1 second.
Okay,
yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so give me one more second. Sorry about that. Yeah, there's a lot out here in the chat. I see it. We'll try to get to most of the questions, but I'm just going to post this to, I'll post a link to all the attendees, and you should just be able to click on the link. And we're asking you a simple question, and the question is, what do you do at home now that you absolutely did not do pre-COVID? And I'll share my screen again. So if you can just click on that, you should be able to click on that from any device. And, would love to understand from you what is new in your life. So it looks like work, cook, exercise, games. I thought there'll be someone, coming from university. I thought people will say learn or take courses, something like that. But oh, some brands showing up, Zoom, Netflix, yoga. It's nice. Messenger. Great. So we're going to stop sharing this. And, so there was a question asked about, productivity and how the productivity changes when you have work from home. The traditional, expectation has been that the productivity actually goes down a little bit. But what people are finding is that in the first week of transition, it goes down, but then it stabilizes to somewhere between 80 to 90% of the team's productivity in face-to-face settings. And for most people, they're fine with that in terms of, there is a loss, there is a drop, but it's not, as dramatic as one might think. So I think that is absolutely also interesting to see. For example, at one point, work from home was being reserved for a highly, the stars on the team were given the privilege of working from home. Now it is more democratic and inclusive. Everyone has an opportunity to work from home. So I think it has really been a much more inclusive work from home, more of a community orientation than what we have seen before. So I'm just going to go ahead and stop this question because I have another question for you. And the second question that I have for you is, should be activated right now. So if you click on the same link, you should see a second question, which is more brand focused, which is what is the brand that you use more of today in comparison to last March? So reflect on what brands you use more of today in comparison to what you used to, last February, last January, and so on. And I'll share the screen, and it will be fantastic. We already know some of it. It's always good to get some validation because, we hear about the DoorDash story, the Amazon story, the Zoom story, Netflix, and so on. But it's nice to get the, there's some brands here I don't recognize. We have some Hulu fans. Dell? Oh, really? Okay. Oh, recipes.com. It looks like cooking has gone up in a big way. Yeah, Home Depot is an interesting one. Great. I love these word clouds. It's wonderful to see the zeitgeist of the community come together in terms of where we're all going and how our lives are changing. So it's wonderful to see. Pinterest, recipes.com, Nintendo, Whole Foods, Etsy, I believe. I see Etsy, Bitsy. I don't know if those are all different brands or the same thing. I know Etsy is a big brand. Discord. I mean, that's a new thing that I'm hearing a lot of, which is a new ClassPass, Discord. Very interesting. Costco's in there. Interesting. Starbucks. Athleta. Great. So I think this was fascinating. So I'm going to stop sharing this and get back to the presentation. Thank you. Yeah, let me just do a time check. We have, 12:30. I think we'll probably take the bulk of questions towards the end. But and I do see, there's a couple in the Q&A. And so we are going to, I like some of the questions that have already come in, but, maybe please hold on to the very end, because we do talk a little bit about how to make sense of, this. And I think many of the questions may get more clarified as we move forward. So I request that we hold on, till the very end. Feel free to add your questions. We'll just review them at the end, and we'll take them at the end. Thank you. And of course, many experiences came home. For us, in the university, abruptly last March, we decided to move to remote operations. So 50 to 60,000 students were affected, and faculty members, in a matter of 1 to 2 weeks, had to figure out how they can give exams online. Doctor's office has come home. Basically, you can do telehealth, virtual care that has gone up, virtual banking. Nobody goes inside a bank branch anymore. Restaurant, shop, work, of course. So ultimately, the home has become really this more integrated, sort of place where we do everything now. And I think that is a new concept for many of us. And this is a little bit of a busy slide. So bear with me. But I have like 15 examples here of things that are, transitioning. So I'll just kind of read it out because it might be a little hard to read on your screen. So some of the industries I have here are groceries, universities, restaurants, banking, investments, movies, that is going to the theater, that is, coffee, business, healthcare, general, and audit and compliance. So for example, it used to be that if you're in accounting or consulting, they used to send out an audit team to the client. Now it's all being done virtually. Exercise, apparel, religion, digital worship has become more common in all churches, all religions. And so that's interesting. But testing has really, really changed. So for example, in many cases, we were used to going to a location to get a test taken. So where, people would take our blood or something like that, and they would, figure out whether, we're doing all right or some change needs to be made. Now, many of those tests are working with patients at home. So they'll mail you a kit and you send back some materials, some biological materials, and the test results are, sent to your phone, and you know exactly where you stand. So I think something like that's interesting. Professional meetings. I am attending my 5th virtual conference next week. This is a conference of business school deans across the world. It's happening on a virtual platform next week. And if you're familiar with Amazon MTurk, for example, the usage on those kinds of gig economy based, mechanisms is also exploding in terms of where we're going. So, how do we start making sense of all of this as marketers, right? I think the first one that I really want you to think about is the relationship between experience and value. Customers want value ultimately, right? Anytime there is a transaction, they want to make sure that in that transaction, they are getting what they want, when they want it, how they want it. They want to be in control. They want the products. The experience was just a way for them to get that, right? So if you think of this in various spaces. And of course, I'm really thinking of physical experiences here. You can say virtual experiences, how would they push the envelope here? But really, the argument here is pretty simple, that we are moving from, a traditional economy having experiential and valuable, components to it, and many other, types, to just one box, which is the not experiential and valuable. That's where the customer's focus is shifting. So customers are shifting from, transactions with products and services and brands where they were deriving value as a result of experience, to now, situations where they are getting the value but they don't have to go through an experience to get the value. That is the transition, that we are talking about. And this is almost a philosophical question. Why can't we Zoom forever? And I think the issues there are, there are some few very interesting ones. And the first one is what we call audio and video spatiality. And we are used to being in physical spaces where audio and video gives us clues on where people are standing and what they're doing, right? So let's say we're having a conversation, at a crowded, plaza. Basically, I know that there's ambient noise and there's far off noise. There's noise that is little closer, and then I'm hearing the conversation that I'm directly involved in. So that is a concept of audio spatiality. And then video spatiality. I can see people. Some people are far off, some people are close, some people are behind me, some people are on this side, etc. So what Zoom essentially does is it takes our 3D world and it gets rid of the spatiality. So the reason why we all get frustrated in Zoom meetings and we tell the same colleague, you're on mute, is because sometimes you're in a meeting with 20 people, you don't know who's speaking. You don't. So we now have protocols where everyone's on mute, right? So the reason that I don't think we can Zoom forever is this world in which there's no spatiality is a problem. And already I think Microsoft Teams has tried to fix this. They have one particular visual where you have tiered seating, and you're able to see people that are seated in the back, quote unquote, versus the front. But we still haven't quite figured that out, I think. So the spatiality is an issue. So recently, this student told me that she thought Zoom meetings were more intimate, and I was completely blown away by that because I viewed Zoom as kind of more of a synthetic meeting environment, an artificial meeting environment where it is somewhat more impersonal. But the student's point was, I'm one of 25 boxes now on my teacher's screen, and we're all there, right? And I can't really hide. I can't, and I'm in the same space as all these people. And so there's this concept of illusion of intimacy in Zoom meetings, that we are now in spaces where we are co-mingling with people, and yet we are not, all there, And one of the big challenges that we've had in online education is webcams. Many students don't want to turn it on. Of course, we understand that some people have home situations that are embarrassing or, really something that people are not very proud of. We absolutely are sensitive to that. We understand that. But the other thing that we were surprised to learn is that people felt that if you turn on their webcams, that somebody might be staring at them or looking at them. And if it was in an actual classroom environment, you could disentangle that quite easily. But in a Zoom environment, you really can't do that. You can't really figure out if the person is looking at the instructor or this person. So those are the kinds of unintended consequences that we are really discovering as we go along. And then I think finally there's a concept of co-presence that I'm an extrovert. I'm a self-confessed extrovert. I love people. I like being with people. And so I think in the virtual environments of today, it is an artificial environment, right? So it feels like we're in the presence of others, but not quite. So I think these are some issues that in terms of what have we lost in this world? What have we lost? I think these are some things that come to mind, for me, that we have lost spatiality. We have moved from, intimate conversations with friends, colleagues, coworkers, to a faux intimacy where, we are not really, on the same page sometimes, and then co-presence. So, but what did we gain? Did we gain something in this world? I think the first thing is, routing. It was very interesting for me to see that a whole bunch of people saying that the amount of cooking that they do at home has gone up. and that is absolutely true for me. In fact, amount of cooking I do, that certainly has gone up. But of course, my wife's cooking has gone up even more, and certainly I'm the beneficiary of it. And somehow we have lost the sense of home in society. If you look at the way we have been thinking about people in society, um, there's been a lot of discussion on how as a society we have lost our connective tissue because we are no longer rooted at home. We are kind of adrift in a sea of work, and this has made us come back to home, and for some people a little too much, honestly. So I know of multiple people who have simply not left their home for a year. And well, I'm not that way, but that has happened. um, and time saving. No, the time lost on commutes, no more, right? We've gained that. There are many people who have had long commutes in different parts of the world. For example, I've had a staff member and she used to have a 1.5 hour commute each way. So you do the math, it's 3 hours a day and then sometimes 4 hours. So let's just say 3 hours times 5 is 15 hours. She just got 15 hours a week back. She's more relaxed now, more productive. So certainly I think those kinds of things, have been good in terms of what we have gained. And of course, no more lines. My nightmare scenario in retail has always been a Costco store on December 23rd. Nightmare in terms of standing in lines. And I think the longest line I've stood in Costco probably been half an hour, and no more standing in long queues, right? You just, so there are definitely some advantages that we've had gained. But certainly I don't want to claim that we have all the answers in terms of either what we have gained or what we have lost. But these are some things that do come to my mind. And ultimately, I think there are some big value shifts that are going on in terms of what the customers want now. And what I encourage is asking the question, what's the new value proposition in your line of work, in your vertical, wherever you are in the marketing universe, is there a new value prop? So I think I always encourage thinking about actually writing out the value proposition for your products and services. Why is it that consumers should buy this particular product over competing products? And I think when we talk about value shifts, the 5 variables that I am encouraging people to think about are speed, reliability, informationality, interactivity, and sociability. They're interrelated, but I think the value shifts are headed in these directions in terms of what consumers want more of. So for example, if you watch the Super Bowl, you saw an ad for a new service called Vroom, VROOM. And what were they touting? They were touting this idea that you can order a car without going to a dealership ever. Just order a car, the car comes home. So the new value proposition is, people want reliability. They want to trust that process. They want to know they can go to an app, a website, and then place an order, and like a big order, like a car, and they want to feel that product is actually going to come home, and that is happening increasingly because of informationality. For example, people want alerts. They want to know, has my car left the warehouse? Is it on its way? Is it coming today or tomorrow? They want to know when the car is being delivered. And so these kinds of things are where I think the value shifts are happening. Another question, of course, to ask is, are some customer segments more affected than others? And we know that that's very much the case. And how have your competitors outpaced you? Your competitors better than I do. And so that's again something worth thinking about. So we just put together a takeaway sheet. So you're going to get that along with a recording of this, by email. So it'll be wonderful if that's of use to you, where you can take that to a meeting and engage your team on these kinds of questions in terms of what are the value shifts that we are seeing or that we think we'll see in short order, and how do we prepare ourselves for that. So we have one more interactive session. Give me one second, please. Yeah, this is again another moment for us to ask you, in your professional role, what do you think how will life be different? And in this case, we are encouraging you to post a sentence, you know, in terms of how your life might be different in this new world. And then we're inviting the community to upvote or downvote, you know, different things. So you'll see a thumbs up sign. So as the responses start coming in, you can see what others are saying, and you're welcome to upvote those that you think um, speak for you. Great. It's interesting that, you know, hiring new employees from any state is an interesting one. So certainly labor markets are going to reform. You know, there's not just going to be local markets anymore. They're going to be kind of national and even global markets. So that's interesting. Already, I know that there are freelancers from other parts of the world doing work with American companies. So certainly, I'm sure that trend is going to continue. Great. I think we're kind of stabilized here, so I'm just going to stop this. Um, I had one more slide, I think, so I'll just finish up on that, and then we can do questions after that. Yeah, ultimately, what we are seeing is that big messages are the post-experience economy is here to stay, will continue to grow. This is where the growth is likely to be. There's significant value shifts in your customer base. Are you paying attention to that? And how do we ensure that we are well positioned to succeed in the new world? So and sometimes I feel ready. Sometimes I don't know what the unknowns are that are ahead, and so I don't know if it's like that for you as well. But wish you the best. Now I'll just stop sharing, and then we can move over to questions. And give me a second. Thank you. Yeah, I see some questions are really very long. I don't know if I'll be able to, get to them. Let's see. Yeah, Suha says, virtual space has also given the sense of equality. Now everyone is seated in the front row. I think that's quite true. And certainly there's a sense of inclusion and egalitarianism that is very much the case in this environment. Okay, so there are some questions here. For example, let's take the one I see at the very bottom, which is, do you believe VR and AR, so virtual reality and augmented reality, may have some solutions to help alleviate Zoom fatigue? Answer is yes. I know there are people that are working on enhancements that are going to make things better. I've personally been involved in test driving a couple of those. And I'm not yet convinced, that it's actually very helpful at this point, because the ones that I've seen create elaborate experiences online that, imagine if, you're entering a park or you're going past some boulders and suddenly someone shows up there and says hello to you, things of that nature. So I'm not really, sure if those are going to help with reduce Zoom fatigue. I think one of the things that they are aiming for is greater engagement and immersion. They are wanting to create environments that are not just, informational exchange, but they want to create environments that are hedonistic and that are deeply sticky environments where you want to go there. You feel some sort of connection, to that environment. Will that help with, especially with work situations? Not entirely clear. It might help with some, retail and selling situations, actually, where you might want people to, go on a walk in a park or something like that. That might really be interesting. For example, if you're selling gardening services. But, overall, I think it's in a very incipient stage, very, very nascent stage, I think. And we are not really, sure where that's going to go. That's kind of my take on that. Let me switch to questions. Yeah, I think there's this concept of experience and engagement. Are they interchangeable? And yeah, I don't think so. So when I'm talking about an experience, I'm talking about some sort of a space where you typically have a sensory connection to that space, and you have interaction with other human beings. So for example, a department store is a classic experience that I think about. A sit down restaurant is a classic experience that I'm thinking about. Engagement can happen without experience. For example, Amazon, anytime I order a product, I know when it's left the warehouse. They tell me it's 3 steps out. They tell me it's been delivered. They send me a photo of it sitting on my porch because I'm too lazy to, answer the doorbell of the FedEx person. That is engagement. That's basically informationality, is what I was talking about earlier. An experience is a place where, you're actually interacting, with people. So whereas, and then you can differentiate that between physical and online experiences, of course. But engagement can happen, without the experience. That's the claim. They can be, in fact, deep engagement, without experience. And I think what the customers seem to want these days is exactly that. They want the engagement part, but they want the informationality of it. They just want to know, hey, did you get my product? Is it on its way? Tell me when it's coming. Is it in good condition? Done. That's it. That's the extent of their, consumerism. They're not really wanting to go and kind of, shop through rows and rows of clothes and try different things on. And, like, for example, in car selling, they always talk about the new car smell. Well, Vroom is getting rid of it. You go to an app or website, you click on it, car comes home, So, and I think, and they give you updates as you go along, hence there's engagement. So I think they're not the same thing. I'm not using them interchangeably, I think. Would love to hear your thoughts on if WeChat and similar type apps are the pivot marketers need to shift to in the post-COVID world. Not sure where to drive that car. So I'm just going to leave that out. Let's see, scrolling up. Yeah, the quality of life enhancing measures down to the employees. Yeah, avoiding the commute is a classic. I think, but certainly I think in addition to helping with customers in terms of enhancing the quality of the life, we know that online environments require more structure. For example, if you just had some people in a room, in some situations, you could have more, organic discussion. You could have, but in some work environments, working from home in a virtual environment requires people to be more disciplined. It requires people to have clear agendas, workflows, goals, objectives, outcomes, measures, metrics. So as we enter the data-based world, I think, I think the quality of life is also going to require that we think about, structure, and that we think about how do we structure our work, not just how do we, visit our work, is it through Zoom or by a car, but how do we structure work differently in virtual environments versus, the way we used to do work, in a physical office. I think that is going to be important as we move forward, I believe. I think I've hit on most of the questions. We still have a little bit more time. Let's see. I'm doing it. Oh, we have 1 minute. I promised Lisa that she would have at least 1 minute. So I think this is perfect. Thank you all so much for your engagement. And Lisa, thanks for this platform. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. That was wonderful. I have a whole page, a couple pages here of notes, as I'm sure you all do. The one thing I'm really walking away thinking about is just what you were talking about of experience versus engagement. I think for marketers to go back to that fundamental question of who is my customer, what do they value, right? And that's part of the handout everyone's going to receive. And remembering the customers at the center and the expectation of experiences and engagement is shifting. And maybe not, I'm wondering this question in my mind, like, is it different for a product brand versus a service brand? Or maybe you've got customers now who still really want that kind of traditional experience, but that there's a whole bunch that don't value that and actually would really value a brand to not have all of everything that goes into providing kind of like the restaurant experience, the department store experience. So these are really interesting questions and times, I think, for marketing leaders to really sit back and think about. It's not what does our customer want and who is our customer, because it might not be one way, it might be several ways. And so this really, to me, reinforces this whole acceleration of digital transformation that we all know and that we see. And I do think digital marketing plays into this exactly. We certainly see this at Simplicity. It's all about digital marketing, demand generation. All of these new ways are additive. And so there's some replacement, but also I'm wondering if there's an additive element, again, probably depending on your brand and really how your customers want to experience your brand. So lots of stuff there to noodle on, as always, Sandeep, getting us to think critically, taking a step back and just a profound acknowledgement. I don't know about you, but just to sit there and see all of the changes in every single industry. I mean, I think we all know this, but I haven't sat down and really looked at it in the way you presented it. So I want to thank you for that, because wow, it's a lot. You know, we have been going through a lot in every regard, and it is a big shift for all of us. And when you said, "Are you ready?" I thought to myself, well, ready or not, here we go, right? We're in it, and we're making it happen every day, and we're all in it together. So I want to thank everybody for joining our Learning and Development series. This is what we're all about at Simplicity, bringing in thought leaders like Sandeep, local thought leaders, really bringing in our broad community. I saw many of our consultants on the call, and our friends outside and our colleagues. Please continue to engage with us and let us know what other topics you want. So really here to serve you. And we're all, like I said, we're all in this together. We've got to continue to have these conversations so that we all can keep adapting and being resilient in these changing times. So you're going to get the email, as we've mentioned, with this recording, as well as a handout. We hope you use it. Again, give us feedback, and thank you so much for your participation. Have a great day, everybody.